the bookshop, it's the bookshop, it's the bookshop of Beverly Farms.
Howdy, everybody. It is Sam Feifel, your host of John Updike's Ghost, your favorite little podcast about reading, literature, writing, all things awesome, and doing things at night. And I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, the co-owner of the bookshop of Beverly Farms, and all-around great person, Hannah Harlow. How are you doing today, Hannah?
Excellent. I like a good evening recording every once in a while. Shake things up.
Yeah, no, it's good to shake things up. I agree. Late night musings, always more entertaining, I'm sure.
Yes.
It's very cold in my house. I have a blanket on my lap.
Wow,
So,
I'm so sorry.
I feel like an old person, an old crone with a blanket on my lap, talking about books at night.
Yeah, you're very old.
By the fire, my broken back. I have 3 books this week. They are might as well just get the agenda right out of the way.
Launch it. Let's go.
What are we doing? Chit chat. First up is a book that my daughter gave to me for Christmas called The Bookshop by Evan Frith. It is a nonfiction work I think you are familiar with.
Yes, I almost brought this home on Saturday when I was leaving the shop. I thought I should really read this, and I totally forgot that Ruby gave it to you.
Yeah. Second up is struck me in somewhat similar of a way as Good Girl, as a book that could be big, has a lot of components of a big book. This comes out in February at some point. Yes, February 2025, called Beta Vulgaris by Margie Sarsfield. Do you know anything about this book?
I don't know anything about that book.
Took it off the ARC shelf.
Wow.
It could be like totally obscure, but...
Do I even have it on order? I don't remember it.
I don't know if you do, but we'll get it on order. And then last up, I have book 2 in the Mirror Visitor series, The Missing of Claire de Lune.
Okay.
Those are my 3 books. What do you have on tap?
My 3 are Water Moon by Samantha Soto Yambao.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is The 3 Lives of Kate K by Kate Fagan.
Uh-huh.
And the 3rd book is 3 Days in June by Ann Tyler. Sorry, I was like, do they really have both?
Yeah, I was about to say,
number
are you
3
messing
in
with
them?
me here? Come on, it's late at night. I can't. We had the Dream Hotel and Dream Count.
Am I messing with myself?
Why are all the books named the same thing? I don't understand what's going on.
That was really confusing for a second.
That was a bit of a struggle. Why don't we start with the Ann Tyler? That's what people came for. Start with the big guns. Last time we talked, we started with the Adichie. This time we'll start with the Tyler.
Right. So the Ann Tyler also comes out in February. And this was my first Ann Tyler.
I don't think I've ever read anything by you.
Why did I think that you really had?
I don't know. I was trying to think of what an Ann Tyler book was. And what is the one that I would have read?
Well, I think she's famous for like the something artist, got made into a movie maybe. Anyway, she's been around. She's been around for a really long time. And when
French Braid,
French Braid was recent.
Vinegar Girl, Redhead by the Side of the Road, Breathing Lessons. Never heard of any of these books.
Okay, well, she's a best-selling author.
I know, but
very
I'm
popular.
I didn't read it. Yeah.
And
Accidental Tourist. I might have read Accidental Tourist.
That's what when I said artist, that's what I meant.
Yeah. 2002. Okay. All right.
So when people say like they want like a really nice book, everyone's always like, "Oh, you should recommend Ann Tyler." Like, sure, it's really nice books. Like,
nice. What is a nice book?
It's like it's not necessarily feel good, but she's like witty and nothing too bad.
Not
happens.
Too heavy.
Not too heavy.
Dying or anything.
She is like so. If this is any indication for other books, it was just like the emotional level was just like kind of middle of the road. Like there are some bumps, there are maybe some concerns to be dealt with, but like nothing felt too bad.
Like the David Nichols?
Yeah.
but not as funny.
Not quite as funny. She has she is a little bit funny. She's not as funny as David. She's not
David
very
Nichols
funny.
is pretty funny. I laughed out loud at that book.
I think David Nichols is very funny.
I just passed that book along to our friend Mara. She was here and was looking for books to steal, and I told her to read that.
Yeah, his other book, Sweet Sorrow, I died. Like, I was laughing out loud a lot that my husband got annoyed and told me to go into another room.
Yeah, no, she's funny. Okay,
That didn't happen
not
with
that
Ann
funny.
Tyler.
You're not guffawing.
I didn't guffaw, laugh out loud, but you kind of like chuckle to yourself.
Right, yeah.
So it's called 3 Days in June, and it is set over 3 days in June. It starts on Friday, it ends on Sunday.
Sense. Oh, wow, okay.
And it's this woman who's been divorced for many years, but still has like a pretty good relationship with her ex-husband. Their daughter is getting married. So it is her wedding weekend. And it's like a pretty chill, low-key weekend, like wedding. You know, it's not very large. They just wanted like a small wedding or whatever.
It's like the new Will Ferrell movie with Reese Witherspoon.
I just saw that ad. Yeah. So, and also, you know, as you go along, you kind of, the interactions with the daughter, you sort of understand more and more what their relationship has been, which isn't like so bad, but it also doesn't seem like always so great. So the complicating factors are that the ex-husband was he had arranged to stay with his daughter, and then everybody was like, you can't do that. And I think something then happened that he couldn't. Anyway, he ends up staying with his ex-wife.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, but also the book opens with her maybe quitting her job. She kind of like has this interaction with her boss and like impulsively is like, yeah, I'm gonna
fuck
quit.
off. Yeah.
So all weekend she's kind of stressed about like,
did I just quit my job?
And now I have to go find a new job, and like that might suck. And my daughter.
That does suck. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a very nice resolution.
Everything's tied up in a little bow at the end. Everybody gets married. Huzzah.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like it's satisfying, right? So you end, you feel like something happened that you didn't necessarily see coming. You probably saw it coming, but like maybe not in the way it happened. And yeah, it's tidy.
Okay. All right.
And it's short. Like you can read it, you know, probably in one sitting, maybe two, whatever.
I've seen people are complaining. I saw some sarcastic tweets that was like, new novels have apparently mandatory length of 235 pages.
I don't know. I think it's funny because
people are cranking out, 80,000 word novels because they're under pressure to publish.
I actually think the short novel is really appealing. I mean, when you look at books like Claire Keegan's Small Things Like These, to some people, I mean, that is like a perfect little book. You all know how much I love it. Oh my God, we talk about it all the time. But it'd be terrible if every single book was that length.
Right. You need
variety.
You need some heavy hitters every once in a while.
Totally. You sometimes just want to sit down with a big old tome and just like, it's going to take a long time. And P.S., by the way, this is reminding me that I decided to read Infinite Jest this year.
Oh, wow. Really? What?
Yeah. So.
You just started?
Yes, I've been reading a few pages every couple of days.
Oh, you'll be still reading a few pages in October.
That's why I said this year. I didn't say
That's
this month.
That's a tough book. You gotta. You can't really dip into that book. You gotta just read it. You should be able to read that. You can read that book for hours at a time if you have the time.
I'm trying.
You can crush it.
I wouldn't say I'm crushing it at the moment.
Oh my God!
But
you have to get into the flow of it. You have to. You have to really like going and doing the footnotes and all that sort of stuff. You have to read all that. You can't
have
skip
to do the
those.
Footnotes.
Can't save them for later. You gotta like.
I missed one. I was sort of like, where are all the footnotes? And then I was like, there was one on this page. I didn't even see it.
Yeah. No, you got to be moving back and forth.
Yeah, I know. I'm prepared, and I'm going to dig in at certain points, but like whatever.
Fun to talk
that's
about.
a side note, but on the other end of the spectrum, we have these shorter books, and Ann Tyler wrote one. I think Sandwich falls in this category. There is something really appealing about just like, I'm going to freaking crush this book tonight.
Yeah. Well, I have multiple segues. Maybe I'll go to this. So speaking of a nice, short, crushable book, I read this in 2 days, I think. Beta Vulgaris.
Tell me, what is this book?
So her name is Margie Sarsfield. This is her debut She is young. She's a recipient of the 2019 Calvino Prize, earned her MFA from Ohio State, has appeared in Salt Hill and some places. I don't know. She lives in Reno, Nevada. She's like, it's like a book about 20-year-olds, is why I like it. It reminds me of whatever that, what was the book that was set in Scotland that I read? Like all the disaffected 20-year-olds. Life in the City or City something.
Lazy City.
Lazy City.
I thought it was Ireland. It was Scotland? Okay.
Maybe it was Ireland. Yeah, it was Ireland. Yeah. Because it was all about the Troubles and stuff. Never mind. Anyway, kind of similar age group, right? It's like post-college. It's about a couple who live in Brooklyn. They're living in Brooklyn in the Obama era. So not far from when you and Jason were in Brooklyn. And it's kind of like that same era. He plays in a like DIY hardcore band, and, she, has some cheesy degree and works like at a high-end grocery store or something. But they live in an apartment in Brooklyn and they're fine. They're making it. But they decide, because like they're also kind of like leftists, very guilty about the environment. She's always, talking about buying, the organic stuff or whatever and can't afford it. So they have decided that they are going to go to the sugar beet harvest, where you can like work 12-hour days for like 6 weeks straight and make a ton of money. It'll make them like 4 months worth of rent or whatever, and they'll be able to live their lifestyle. It'll all be great. So they drive out to Minnesota for the sugar beet.
Minnesota.
So they drive from Brooklyn to Minnesota for the sugar beet harvest, where they camp out. Like you get free meals, because everybody's just, you're working 12 hours on, 12 hours
harvesting.
off. Right, crushing the sugar. She must have done this. I don't know how this is the setting, but she you get all the details of what working at the sugar beet harvest is about. And so they're all camping. They've all got their campers. They all eat together in like this, church cafeteria or whatever. And it's like dirty hippies and crunchy Rastafari dudes and like all this kind of stuff. And they're kind of the most sort of highly educated, got their shit together type of stuff. There's also a group of Mainers. They're often talking about the Mainers, which is really funny. Like,
wait,
I guess
they're there for
Portland.
4 months?
No, like 6 weeks.
Oh, 6 weeks. Sorry.
Like 6 weeks. And so it's all written from the first person of the girlfriend, starting in the car, getting there, and they start the harvesting or whatever. And she is just like a complete and total. It reminds me a little bit of, what was the really funny book that I liked that was
Banal Nightmare?
Banal Nightmare, yes.
I'm so good at remembering your books.
I know, I'm so good at remember what my books are like. It's similar in that you get a ton of interior monologue, and like that woman was like depressed and sarcastic. This woman is depressed and just anxious as hell. Like she's got eating disorder, anxiety, depression. She's off her meds because she can't afford them.
Oh.
And so she's just like constantly on 11. Like, is my boyfriend like, hitting on this girl? Am I hitting on this girl? What's going, just like, right. And so like, can I do this job? Can I not do this job? I don't have any money. Like I only have $137 in my bank account. And I don't want to tell my boyfriend that because he's got all this money. But then also, so layered on top of that, they call it, they refer to it as horror, but I don't think it's horror. But on top of all of that, like people just start going missing. And she hears voices from like the beets are like talking to her.
Is she murdering people?
So that's what you don't know. What I really like this book is you have no idea what is happening. Right? Like the beets are talking to her. The beets are pulsing.
This sounds amazing.
They're trying to get her to do stuff. People are disappearing. Like, did her boyfriend just like leave her? So like, you just have it's the most unreliable narrator ever. Cause she's talking about like she just keeps seeing these pamphlets that tell her things, and there's no way that pamphlet was there. Like, what are you talking about? The writing on the pamphlet is insane, and like all the other characters are constantly going like, "Are you like all right? Like, do you need anything?" And she's like, "No, I don't need anything. I'm fine. You don't know anything."
Okay, this sounds amazing.
It's so good. That's what I'm saying. It's like I couldn't put it down. I read it I did in like 2-3 hour shifts probably. Because you're just like, oh my God, this woman is insane, but you don't know what's happening. It's like, are the beets sentient?
Right. Okay, well,
so
save
great.
it for me. Don't throw it away.
No, I won't. It's really good.
I did order one. It's coming out from Norton.
It's Norton. Yeah, I tagged them on Blue Sky because I liked it so much.
Good.
No, it's great. I think I would hand sell the shit out of it. Like,
if
be
you
fun.
were ever in the store.
Right.
Okay. So, but you brought something up that has been sort of gently plaguing me, and that is the category of horror, which mostly...
So I don't think this is horror, though. I would call it more like absurdist or surrealist,
But I do think maybe people are calling it horror, just because the horror is popular, that now it's kind of like, let's broaden this category.
Right.
So that people, because they're buying
there's no
horror,
violence, nobody's getting stabbed or anything, like it's just people disappear. Where did they go? I don't know.
That's what I'm more interested in.
Yeah. No, it's more, I call it surreal or absurdist, like, 'cause there's no blood and guts or whatever.
Great. Love it.
There's a lot of like bodily fluids. Like that's all, like that's like she's got like, she's like an oversharer, like you're just like, oh my God, what is she doing? Stop doing that. That's awesome.
Okay. And I'm going to talk about The 3 Lives of Kate K.
Okay.
By Kate Fagan.
Mm-hmm.
Stick with the threes. So this was
by Kate Fagan.
Yeah, this was a Reese book club pick.
Oh.
And I don't know why I took it home, to be honest. I guess I was just curious. I don't know what I thought. So I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. Right. Mm-hmm. So I had issues with things. And one of those issues was the naming of characters and the books within the books. I was like, these are terrible. It's like, why is her name Kate K by Kate Fagan? Like, that's your name. It drove me crazy for some reason. And then there are like titles, because there are like books within a book, and which I do kind of like.
So it's like a publishing book?
Yes and no. Like, she just kind of like, this is the other thing that annoyed me. Is like, they weren't real characters. They weren't living real lives. Like, it was all so ridiculous that you were
is it a romance?
No.
Oh.
I mean, there's some romance. Yes, it's a very romantic book. I will say that. It's very romantic because it has this idea that there are these like great loves of your life, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe it's a friend love and maybe it's a love, and that those like will be there. Like, you can go through a ton of crap and you can leave and like you can mess up, but like those are like pure relationships.
Okay.
You can find the right, whatever.
Right.
So, and this is again a book. This is a book that like makes big statements, right?
I was about to say, it reminds me of the Adichie last time, where you're like, you didn't like it because they're like making these grand declarations.
Yeah. So they're making like, the character. You're getting kind of different periods of this character's life. So you have her early life where she has this great friendship, but she's also like in love with her friend, and her friend is not in love with her back.
Right.
So there's like tension that's building.
Right.
And then something terrible happens, and the character reinvents herself and is kind of just on the run and reinvents herself. So then she has a second name. So this is a second life, right? Second life of Kate K. Mm. And then the third life is that she writes a book, and it becomes a massive bestseller.
Oh, massive bestseller. Oh, yeah. Sweet.
Massive.
Man, I can't believe that writing talent was just hiding out there all that time.
She was a very talented actress. It was maybe going to go make it big in Hollywood.
Oh.
But she's good at everything. So she wrote a bestseller.
Cranked a book out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also got turned into movies and just
sweet.
All the things happened, and it was, great. And she didn't really do anything except write this amazing book. And one person read it and then blah, everybody loved it.
Boom. Yeah, it's just so good. It's so
Right?
compelling.
That's what I mean by it's not like real, right? So
Right.
it's more about the relationships of these characters and like the plot. I guess it's more like, I don't know.
What is the plot? Like,
is
doesn't sound like there is a plot.
it's all very contrived, right?
It sounds contrived, yes.
But there's like stuff happening in the book that she wrote that you're getting pieces of, and you're getting little like Easter eggs in there because like she wrote about her real life without really writing about her real life.
Gotcha, yes.
So I did find that was really well done, right? Like the way those two things work together.
The craft was good.
The craft was good, yes. The puzzle of the book was good.
Yeah. So you think this woman MFA who wrote it?
No, this is the most interesting thing. So I'm so glad you asked this. I wanted to talk
Well,
about
that was
this.
my question. Like, I wouldn't have thought someone who has an MFA would make their main character just like magically write a book.
So it said it was a debut novel, and then it said it was by the #1 this best-selling author. So I was like, okay, so she's written nonfiction that were New York Times bestsellers. She was an ESPN like newscaster.
What? What's her name? Kate Flora?
Kate Fagan.
Kate Fagan?
Yeah. She played college basketball, and then she went, and when she was at ESPN, I think she was writing for ESPN.com and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then she wrote,
I don't recognize that name
like
at all.
books about basketball players and about basketball, and she wrote a memoir.
Really?
It's so interesting. Yes.
And now she just cranked out.
And then she just cranked out this novel, and it's a Reese pick, and it'll do pretty well, I'm sure.
What the heck?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh yeah, Hoop Muses and all right. Interesting. All the colors came out. Father and daughter and lifetime of lessons. That must be her. What made Maddie run? Wow. Okay.
I know.
Dang. All right. Well, she must be pretty talented.
She must be really talented. And that's what I'm saying. Like, obviously, there's something here. I think for me, there are probably like bigger annoyances than they would be for other readers.
Right.
Like, there are certain things that just like
it's like
rub me the wrong way.
cartoonish. When I complain about books being like a cartoon, you're not really.
Yeah.
It's not delivering realism. It's delivering like a respite of enjoyment or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I had a better transition with the Ann Tyler because I was going to say I often confuse her for Ann Patchett, and Ann Patchett is in the bookshop.
Oh, fun.
Because Ann Patchett, has her bookstore in Austin, which I guess
Nashville. It's in Nashville.
Nashville. That's what I meant. I get those cities confused too.
I almost mentioned Ann Patchett when you were talking about the beet book because I was like, oh, it's like Ann Patchett's book, but on a beet farm instead of a cherry tree farm.
Yes, if Ann Patchett had crazy people disappearing.
She didn't have any crazy people.
So she's prominently in this because she's kind of being credited here by Evan Ferris as leading the indie bookstore renaissance, I guess, which I think probably gives her a little too much credit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you remember, I moderated a panel that she was on that was about indie bookstores. I mean, it was right.
Well, she's like a big, prominent indie bookstore champion. This guy.
Right.
This guy is just like, he writes nonfiction books. He wrote a book about cycling. He wrote a book about, he's a professor of history at James Madison. So, I think he just got it in his bonnet to do a research book on independent bookstores in general, actually.
I mean, I've read many reviews of this book, so,
I know you know it. For the readers, the listeners, it's basically a history of bookstores in America. And I actually, I took a lot of annotations. I actually learned quite a bit from this. Hadn't actually very little knowledge on bookstores and their history, other than what I've experienced by being a bookstore customer my entire life, and I'm now 50. So one of the things is like the bookstore as an institution is really not that old, in terms of like the way we think of it. Benjamin Franklin, I guess, had a bookstore. There was like 4 or 5 books in there, along with like the sugar and the flour and, all that kind of stuff.
More like a general store.
Right. And so there's like a lot of those, and, a lot of early bookstores, they were printers and they were newspapermen, and, it was like basically a printed materials store, not like the way that we would think of a bookstore. And so the first bookstore is kind of like the corner bookstore in Boston. Do you know that?
Yes, yeah. I do know that, because that was part of Houghton Mifflin Harcourt's founding. Like people who owned the corner bookstore went on to found. Houghton
exactly.
Mifflin.
Right. So Houghton is one of the dudes in there. Right. And so part of it is like a lot of this there are a lot of times where I was like, oh, I didn't know that, but I guess I kind of basically knew that. Like I knew some dude in Boston had a bookstore and then founded one of the publishing houses. Like it's such a small industry in general. Like I recognized a lot of the people. And so like, a lot of the people, they talk about the CEO of the ABA right now and like, kind of reverential tones. And I was like, that lady, like, I don't even know if she knows what she's doing.
She's doing great.
She's doing great, but I mean, whatever. Like all the apology emails and nonsense. But it just kind of goes through like a bunch of great moments in bookstore history. Like there's the first Black bookstore, the first gay bookstore, and how I didn't know how intimately involved with like the Stonewall riots and stuff the dude who ran the first gay bookstore in New York was.
Sure.
But like if you asked me like, hey, who are the people involved in the Stonewall riots? I'd be like, I don't know, people own the bookstore. Like, it's
it makes sense, I guess.
It's like, okay, yes, I figured that like some weirdos who liked gay literature were probably involved in the Stonewall riots,
I think the criticisms I've heard of it are that it's not, that it's like a little bit narrow, right? Like it's not telling you about every, it leaves a lot out.
It's like, that's what I'm saying, is it's like,
it's not exhaustive.
Not in any way. No.
Right.
It's like, it reads like a series of magazine essays. Like, hey, did you know about the Nazi bookstore movement? Here's everything about it. Hey, did you know about communist bookstores? Here's everything about it. Do you know about Black bookstores? Here's everything about it. But like, it's always told through the perspective of one bookstore that is like the symbol of that whole movement. And then it'd be like, there's actually 90 bookstores like this, but we're just going to talk about this one.
Yeah, I think that's what people are saying. Like it kind of it's basically, it says it's a history of bookstores, but it's sort of like little mini profiles of 12 bookstores.
Exactly right. Yes.
Yeah.
And so like same thing with like Ann Patchett. It's like, oh, Ann Patchett owns this awesome bookstore. I'm like, I know 100 bookstores like that. Like it's great. It's fine. Ann Patchett's famous, but the books are magic thing is basically the same thing, like.
Oh, for sure.
And so he just chose to focus on that, and he got the books to, like, even like the cover is kind of generic. Like it's not even a picture of a real bookstore. It's just like this illustrated kind of bookstore. Right. And it kind of romanticizes things. And so the 2 takeaways I have from it, right?
Okay. Yes.
2 big takeaways that I think are worth, thinking about. One is I think it glorifies bookstores in a way that it actually sort of undermines at the same time, right? So there's sort of this idea that bookstores are a de facto good. Mm-hmm. And then he's like, oh, but then remember these Nazi bookstores? And remember all these bookstores that used to sell, slavery apologia? And remember all these bookstores that, were anti-feminist and wouldn't sell any women authors? And it's like, yeah, you can have good bookstores and you can have asshole bookstores, just like you can have good anything and asshole anything, And so I think it does a disservice to bookstores to act like they're this like, a priori moral good, that's not the case. Like, not all bookstores are out to change the world,
Some people actually just run them as a business.
Right.
And I think most bookstores are very reflective of their owners, and it's not like all the bookstore owners are good people.
Right. And I don't think we should expect them to. Like, I don't think like your bookstore is failing if you're not, trying to change the world for the better or whatever, like you just think books are things that should be in the world and you want to sell them, like just any other job.
Yes. There's a wide range.
Yeah. And I think it's patronizing sometimes, like, like, oh, the bookseller is, this like cultural phenomenon. No,
Right.
just
Well,
a
I mean, I
person
think
that
a lot
sells
of
books.
people lean into it because it is good for sales or
Right.
whatever.
Yes.
But, you know, when there are definitely times when people talk about bookstores in such a reverential way that I'm sort of like, I'm in here every day. Like, I don't necessarily feel that reverence. I mean,
Right.
I freaking love our store, but like the daily grind of it, like,
Yeah.
robs me of some of that magic for sure.
But also, if you're, if people are patronizing your store because it makes them feel good about themselves, that's a bad business plan. Like you have to be delivering value, right? Like
Yes.
the bookstore fails if books are not actually worth people's time, if they're not actually good, if you're not delivering to them a high quality product.
And if they get home and read the book you just sold them and they're like, well, I'm not actually that into it, and they're not going to come back.
Right. And that's why you can't just be like, oh, I like this person, you should read their book. Like you have to talk about the value of the writing. And that's why it matters. Like,
And that's also why I often get worked up. Like when I'm in the moment hand selling books, I'm like, I have to nail this, right? Like I actually feel that pressure sometimes. And like, obviously that's just me and occasionally getting anxious about
I
things.
feel it all the time because there's lots and lots of books in the store that I don't know anything about. And people are like, what's this book about? I'm like, I don't know.
I know. You can't, I mean, for so long, I knew the book so intimately, just, especially in the beginning, we didn't have that many.
Yeah, we didn't have that many books.
And now there are times people pull it out and I'm like, I really don't remember what that book is about. Like, it's just impossible to know everything.
Yeah. Okay. So, and the other takeaway is that, yes, there were times when books were a much bigger part of the world, right? Like, you used to be able to go to New York City and there was a used bookstore 10 doors in a row and, all that's gone. And, oh no, I'm so sad about it. Right. But it's like, there were no other options. Like there was nothing else to do. It was your prime entertainment delivery. You're not going to the movies. You're not streaming anything. You're not it would be ridiculous if we expected books to be that way, and I think there are people that are just like, oh, books are dying. It's like, no, they're just getting to their level. Like they're not going to go to zero,
Right. I just don't see that happening anytime soon.
No.
And when you actually look at how many books are sold every year, it's like,
it's a huge amount.
It's a massive amount. And we think they're dying. No, they're not dying.
No, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like too many. So anyway, but so to move along, because it is kind of a nice transition. I bought The Missing of Claire de Lune. It's a book that's written originally in French by Christelle Dabos. It's part of the Mirror Visitor series. I think it's probably in YA sections. I found it in a YA section in Sherman's.
Okay.
So
hold the cover up. I've heard really good things about this series.
Yeah, the series is dope. So I read number 1, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And I totally bought it just because of the cover. It had this really beautiful line drawing. It's like a pale blue. It's a very pleasing package. And also I was like, oh, it's a French YA novel in translation. I've never read that before. And it's super just out there in terms of its universe building. It's the concept is God got angry at the world and exploded it, and all of humanity now lives on these floating cities that have 10,000 people on them each, and each one of them is animated by the family spirit that controls that floating city, and you can take airships back and forth, and they have all of the little families have different powers. So this one family can do lots of illusions. This other family can make objects animated. And so the main character's power, she has this very rare mirror traveling power. She can go in any mirror and come out any other mirror. And I don't know,
right.
You can get stuck sometimes, all kinds of crazy crap. And it's just it's a universe unlike any other magical system or any other, there's no elves or dwarves or, it's just like everything is weird and it's very French. So I read that, and like I'm always kind of looking for book 2 in the series when I go into a bookshop. I'll be like, that's what I'm, I remember I can't remember what, but I bought that, the Forever War that way, it's just a book I knew I wanted, but I'm not going to order it off the internet. I'm not going to order it from you. It's like kind of fun to just sort of look for it. And so they had all 4. I didn't even know there was 4.
Yes. I actually did know.
And so they had all 4 at Sherman's in Portland. We were just in there just to kill some time before a movie. And I was like, boom, I'm buying it. Awesome. And it's great. It's, so it's book 2. It continues the story,
Okay.
Sometimes I get worried that like they can't sustain the, coolness of but it kind of just picks up and keeps going. And the like main character is this like, it's a great counter to all the like Harry Potter Chosen Ones books in that, she kind of sucks at everything. She's bad at her powers, but she's also not very nice. And, like you don't even really feel bad for her. Like, I don't know. It's just like it's a great sort of anti-hero, just you're sort of rooting for her because she's getting screwed, but like, you don't really like her very much. It's great. I'm very pleased. So, but I mostly wanted to talk about, bookstore finds are fun, and like you're just ordering all your books on purpose. Takes a lot of the fun out of it. You got to discover.
Right. I have a good segue.
Oh.
Because my last book, Water Moon, is actually sounds somewhat similar to the book you were just talking about, just in that it's like the world building is like bonkers, and you're just like in this kind of other world, and like you've no idea what is going to happen next. Like,
I like it when they don't
everything
tell
is
you
just
the rules.
off kilter. Yeah. So, Water Moon by Samantha Soto Yambao is
what is that
in Japan.
I was about to say Japanese.
Yes. I believe she lives in the Philippines, the author, but
okay.
I think she's Japanese. It's set in Tokyo.
So
cool. People in like our world will go wait in line at this like famous ramen shop. But if they're kind of chosen for whatever reason, they don't, when they open the door, they don't go into the ramen shop. They go into this other world where our main character lives, and her father has been running the pawn shop. So it's a pawn shop. And you can, sell your regrets, like your biggest regret. So when you walk out, you don't have that. Like you just don't, it's not there anymore.
And they give you money for it?
No, they just like
just take it from you.
They just take it from you.
Like, what is the sale? Exactly.
No, they give you tea. They give you a box of tea.
Okay.
They buy it, but
I gotcha. Okay.
So the main character is the daughter of the pawn shop owner, and he's retiring. So when the book opens, it's her last day. He's retiring, and when she wakes up in the morning, she is inheriting the pawn shop, and she like really doesn't want to do this. It's like
really
like does not the life she necessarily wants, but
doesn't want to be stuck in this pawn shop all her life. Yeah. Can they roll into the real world or no?
No.
Oh.
So
what else is in this?
Well,
so just
you don't know.
Father like and daughter. Yeah.
She says you can't, but like you can't. Like there are some things like she maybe doesn't know. But so immediately she wakes up the next morning for her first day, and when she comes downstairs, the pawn shop is a total wreck. Like it's been ransacked. Her dad's missing, and there's a regret missing, and that's like super bad because then you start to learn that they're like these scary creatures that like rule the world.
Regrets or something.
Well, no, they come to like. Well, you come to learn what the regrets do.
Right. Okay.
But they come to pick up the regrets. And if one's missing, like...
Oh, that's a problem. Yeah.
It's bad. So anyway, she's like, what happened to my dad? What am I going to do? There's a regret. Like, this is like bad stuff. And then a guy walks in from the ramen shop, right? Like a guy who like, clearly needs the pawn shop. We don't know why. Mm-hmm. And of course, he's like a handsome man. Who then is like, yeah, I'll help you find your dad. So it's
That's
awesome.
convenient. Yeah.
So then the book then is just like this adventure across this like crazy world where you have this stranger, you know, with a trusted guide. Like she knows the world so well. You start to learn how important the pawn shop is, and like,
Right.
and they have all these friends out in the world because the pawn shop people are like important. And of course, so there's like this little love story happening, like the stranger.
Yeah, he's like, oh, this place is crazy. Yeah, wow.
And so, so what I love is that first you're just on this like adventure, right? So she has to find her dad. You quickly realize like her dad's probably in trouble, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to give too much away, but he has left her a clue of like, so it's almost like a little bit of a scavenger hunt. Like she's just following her dad's clues.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's along for the ride, whatever. So it's fun, right? And like, so then she keeps saying like to the guy who's like, wow, this world is so cool. Like, I feel so awesome to like get to experience it with you. And she keeps being like, be careful. This world is not what it seems.
A little dodgy.
Yeah. And like, what I liked, this is sort of like in contrast to what I was talking about, what I didn't necessarily like with the Kate K, where like people make grand statements and then you're kind of like, you're not delivering, right? Like this book delivers.
Right.
When she's like, this world's not what you see it, what it seems, like it keeps delivering on that promise. And then you get to the end and there's like this twist and you're like, what? I didn't see that coming. And like, that's what she really means. And, you know, like, I just thought it was so fun and I loved it. I'm seeing these reviews where it's like, oh, this is like a new entry in the like cozy fantasy genre where it's just
cozy fantasy.
And it's like low stakes and it's just like get a mug and snuggle up. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Get a mug and snuggle up.
This is not low stakes. There are things at stake and there are like scary guys.
Yeah.
I thought it was awesome. And I don't know, I'm like mildly offended by this like cozy fantasy designation. I just don't agree.
Interesting. I don't know. Cozy is major turnoff for me. I would prefer they not use the word cozy.
I like a cozy, well, not all the cozy mysteries. You're right. I mean, maybe that's why
I just think, you know, I don't really want a cozy book. Like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't even know.
I think a lot of people want cozy books.
I want my hand held through this book.
I mean, I think this is like what I was saying about horror. I think people are saying this is cozy mystery because it's like cool to be a cozy, mystery, but this is a cozy fantasy because it's cool to be a cozy fantasy right now.
I mean, everything in general is easier to sell if you can put it in a little bucket that other people there. Oh, I'm looking for another one of those, you know. But
but this, I think that's
literature should not go in a bucket.
If people are like, I want a cozy fantasy, and it's like we've just been like putting this in now a really big bucket, like they don't deliver. Like this isn't a cozy. I'm sorry,
exactly.
You're not going to get what you want if I hand this to you.
Yeah, and that's, you know, it's bad binary discourse in general because once you label something, it can only be that or not, you know? And so, like, I think it's talk about the story. I think it's talk about it's just like when people can't write about music and all they do is say, oh, it's like Depeche Mode or, oh, it's like Duran Duran. And then they're like, you listen to it, you're like, this isn't like Duran Duran. It's like, well, of course, there's always going to be a way it's not like Duran Duran, you know?
Totally.
Similarly,
and there's sometimes where I'm like, wow, this book reminds me of, right. But I think there are definitely times where I'm like, wow, this book really reminds me of this other book, but in like a vibey way, you know, or like
whatever. There's a vibey way, or you can like the plot, like, so, you know, someone, actually, I recommended that David Nichols another time because someone online was like, there was a outdoor magazine or some kind of magazine story on
I want a book about hiking.
Right. Yeah. So it was like this couple that they hiked across England for their honeymoon. And I was like, oh, if you like that story, that's basically the plot of this book, you know? So like, I think plots sometimes, you know, are similar. Obviously similar things happen. People die or they don't die or whatever, you know, but I don't know. All right.
We've talked about all our books.
If you've made it this far, you should come to our party on February 8th. It starts at 5:00. We'll kick you out roughly around 7:00, but you should come get some cake. There'll be snacks. There'll be some beverages of some kind. There will be stickers, balloons, all things birthday party like, and you should come. It's at the bookshop. Don't all come at once because, so
Spread yourselves out.
yeah,
This wall space.
don't all come at 5, but also don't all wait till 6:30, because our
Just
tiny
pick,
little bookshop can't hold that many people.
5:37. Pick a time.
Yeah.
Pick a
every
weirdo time. To
every
come.
7 minutes, show up. It's going to be great. Very much looking forward to it. Celebrating. I think this is our 85th podcast. So we're starting to do things for a long time. So, now we're impressive and you should tell your friends. Shout out also to Sindel, new super fan. She's reaching Rick Johansson levels of super fandom.
Oh, hi, Sindel.
Where while Rick comments on every YouTube video, Sindel texts me while she's listening to.
Sindel, we got to get you online for the masses.
That's right. Yeah. Sindel, if you make it this far, hit me up with a text and you can do a podcast with us because she just read The Most and she just read The Ministry of Time at our recommendations. So she can comment on many of the books that we have recommended recently.
Excellent.
Okay. And I guess that brings us to the end of this podcast. See you later, everybody.
Bye.